After 95 hours and enough Queen's blood to qualify as an addiction, I think it's time to finally talk about Rebirth. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is one of the best games of the past decade and has some systems and design elements that make it stand apart from contemporary titles. Before we fully discuss though, let me first say, spoiler warning. While I'm not going to be discussing the story, I will be using some footage from later chapters, so if you haven't played or finished the game, do that first. With that being said, let's get squeaky clean. First, I want to talk about the technical aspects. So you can only play this game on PlayStation 5. Is that to the detriment of the game? Well, to some, yes, but for me, no. It's just another reason to buy a PlayStation 5. I played the game in performance mode at 60 frames. Did I notice any bad graphical errors? Yeah, there were a few. There was definitely some pop-in or some weird faces. Some of the characters started to look like potatoes. But for the most part, I had very little complaints. I didn't have any bad glitches, bad bugs. Nothing took me out of the world. No bad technical aspect. Next, let's talk about the music, and the music in this game is superb. The original game already had some of the best music, and this game is an orgasm for the ears. Every track is a banger. There are entire chapters that have different feelings because of the music they're playing. Like, it's phenomenal. And that goes into the sound design. Combat sounded good, sound effects sounded crunchy, and of course the voice acting. The voice acting in this game is second to none. Like, the localization of this game is almost perfect. Like, every voice actor brings the character to life. Like, the original cast is just, it's amazing. Every voice actor is a 10 out of 10. There's none that stand out as bad. Or like, okay, they kind of just blend in. No. Everybody is as good as they could have been. And that is crazy to pull off. Like, there isn't a dud voice actor. Even the crazy side NPCs have fantastic localization and they steal scenes. That's crazy. From here, let's talk about the world building. So if you haven't played Final Fantasy VII, a lot of this might be new to you. And if you have played the original Final Fantasy VII, man, is this game perfect. I think this game, in the exploration and the world building and how you get to interact with the world, is exactly what a Final Fantasy VII fan wanted. The way you can interact with the side characters, the NPCs, the crazy minigames, the way you explore, this feels like a dream of a Final Fantasy VII fan. Like the way you can explore Gongaga or Cosmo Canyon, how you can interact with these iconic locations but in way more detail, is crazy. As Todd Howard would say, 32 times the detail. The characters in this game are done such justice that it actually makes other games look bad. One of my favorite systems is that every single side quest is tied to your companions. Every single one of them. If you've played other games, you realize there's like affinity quests. You build up enough affinity, they give you a side quest, you kind of do that, then it's like, oh, time to bang. In this game, every single one of your side quests is affinity quests. And that really helps tie you into the characters. Then there are moments where the game forces you to play as that character, which these are really cool moments. Then there are entire chapters dedicated to these characters. Then at the same time, there are times where you can just talk to your characters and say the wrong thing or say the right thing. It's really up to you. Just the interaction with the cast is perfect. Like being able to talk to Barrett or Yuffie or Tifa. Again, you can interact with your favorite character on such a deep level. And this ties into the combat. Every character has such unique combat. Now, sure, you can use folios to customize and use the materia system, which is deeper than ever, to customize them and make the characters your own. But there's also a unique, distinct playstyle for every character, and mastering that will let you master the character. And the best part is, even if there's a character you don't really like, let's say Yuffie, you've hated Yuffie. Yuffie has such fun gameplay. All of the characters have epic, unique gameplay. Like, you can see what they wanted you to build the character, like, or what the character might be good at, what the folios are kind of pointing you to be, but you can ignore all this and just build the character how you want using the materia that you want. And this extends into the synergy. The synergy mechanic in this game is so good. Because in Remake, you could kind of just focus on Cloud. But in this game, because of the synergy mechanic, you're kind of incentivized to use everybody. The more commands you use, the higher your synergy, then you can unleash these massive synergy attacks. While again, you can kind of ignore this system, you'd be an idiot to do so. The synergies in this game are not only cinematically epic, which you see characters that you love do awesome moves, but they're also vital to the gameplay. Essentially, the way the combat works is, when the combat starts, build up some ATB, use all your ATB, be switching through characters, unleash the synergy attacks. Through your synergies, you'll build up even more ATB, then you could do a limit break, and then another synergy attack. And it creates this really fun flow to combat. While some may hate the combat system or dislike it or think that it might be slow because you can kind of stop time and use commands, this has one of the best combat systems I've ever played. Not only is it a spectacle of particle effects and slowing time and still being strategic with all kinds of status elements and using the synergy, but it is so in-depth and fun and beautiful and engaging. And there is challenge. There's some actual crunch here. Like, you can set that to dynamic or hard mode, and then the game will happily beat your ass. And I like that. And this ties into the exploration and how you kind of run about the world. I love any game that has hidden bosses. This game has that. I love any game that has lots of boss fights. This game has that. It seems like every half chapter there's a mini boss, and then at the end of a chapter there's a boss, and then you go into the combat simulator and there's even more bosses. And then the summons are bosses, and then they can get even crazier from there. The boss fights themselves are not only epic, but again, it makes you kind of master the systems. It makes you master the status effects. It puts an emphasis on materia you might have misused. And that took a lot of thought, because there's definitely some balancing that they did with the bosses to make sure no matter what you're building your characters to be, that you might have strengths and weaknesses. That there might be party members that you might need to use here, but ignore them here because of how you've built the character. And again, that's really cool. Another thing I really liked was the weapon abilities, and they took this from Remake, which is every weapon can be late game viable. However, as you gain weapons, you can keep using their weapon ability to master it, and then your character will keep that forever. I love this, because what it essentially does is forces you, like let's say I give you a weapon for Tifa, well, you probably want to use Tifa to master that weapon ability. So the game is incentivizing you to change your party. Awesome game design. But even after mastering it, you get a weapon that almost has a built-in different playstyle. One might be heavy on attack or have these new things they're calling weapon upgrades, which is essentially just weapon materia. But it's really cool. It just adds way more depth to the character. Again, you can build the characters how you want. But I love the weapon ability system, because not only do you get an ability that might change your character now or change your playstyle with that character, but it also incentivizes you to use characters you might not be using, right? Like, I didn't want to use Kate Shi, or Kate Sith, however you pronounce it. But it's like, oh, I got a microphone, I better use him. And it's like, oh, then you realize, oh, his gameplay is extremely fun. And I just think it's a really cool system of how they did that. Next, let's talk about the exploration. The way I kind of view open world games is by a formula. What is the formula for your open world? What is these core elements that you repeat throughout it, right? If I go to this region, I'll find this. If I go to this region, I'll find that. Like, what is the formula that you're using? And I can say, after playing so many hours of Rebirth, I love the formula. Now, what I really like is not all of it is built on combat. Sure, there are combat challenges and you might have to fight a few things at a tower, but there are some that you just go around and find. There are locations that you just find and it's like, hey, here's some treasure chests here, find it. While the rewards may be, a little skimpy, it's really cool to just say, hey, we made this cool location, we put 3 chests here, find them. And I really like that. I really like that just going around to cool locations was rewarding. Like, even if I found like a vista that was just like, oh, okay, it's just a view. The view was worth it. There might be something there, from crafting materials or boxes I could break, the Moogle medals, to, again, treasure chests. There might be some combat there. Every place seemed to reward you with something. It didn't feel like a procedurally generated map, right? It didn't feel just like empty, wasted space. No, it felt meticulous. Some of the open worlds, you had to kind of find out where you were going and how to get there. Like, you could see it, and now it's like a puzzle you're putting together to try to get to that location. And that's really cool for an open world to do, right? Some of them are just as bland as shit. Okay, this area is locked for late game. No, this one, they really went all out to make each location not only feel unique, how you explore it unique because of the chocobo and the powers your chocobos might have, but also just the layout and the feeling. Of course, the music helps with this. I just really loved exploring this. Now, some of the regions I feel like are bigger than others, but no region felt empty. Every region was so distinct, so fun to explore, and again, I loved the exploration. The other thing I loved was the combat simulator. I thought this was so smart because as you explore, as you do things, you unlock more combat simulations and you unlock more intel. With the intel, you can purchase unique materia. Like if you want the combat materia, you're going to have to do some intel gathering, which is cool. It made side missions really rewarding. So did the combat simulator. The combat simulator is something I think every game should have. Like at this point, if you don't have just fun ways to jump in and fight some stuff and earn rewards, you're kind of doing a disservice to your players. Because some players, that's all they have time for in a day is like, I only have an hour or two to play and I just want to fight some stuff. The game gives you that chance. It gives you that opportunity to do that. You can just jump in, fight some stuff, win some cool materia, and you're still earning XP and AP for your materia and characters, which is really cool. As you explore and gather more information, you'll unlock more and more simulations, which is really cool. And the other part is, throughout the game, you'll find plenty of other combat simulators, like the one in the Golden Saucer. You'll find all kinds of fighting pits in this game, and I really liked it. I really liked just, hey, here's a unique fighting thing with a twist, have fun fighting it, or here's a boss fight, or here's this. And I love that. I've loved arenas since Oblivion, and to kind of have that in this game that is pretty damn endless, it feels like. It's very daunting. I really liked it. Next, we have to talk about minigames. And this is sort of hit and miss for some people. While I loved the minigames, and there is enough minigames for 4 Mario parties, is what it feels like. And I love that. Because this game can drag you into the world with such immersion. Again, like when you're playing Fort Condor, some of these other minigames, Chocobo Racing, Queen's Blood, you feel a part of the world. Again, it's so expansive. It took me 95 hours, and I was grinding to beat this game. Because I wanted to get a review out as fast as possible. I didn't get a review copy. And it's such a daunting task. Because it's not like you want to ignore these mini games or try to set new high scores, because you're going to win cool items. You're going to win cool accessories. And again, these accessories are so potent in some cases that you might want to change your entire character's playstyle. And to me, that's really cool. But for some, it is hit and miss, because there is a part in the game where the mini games are a bit too much. I loved them. But starting at about chapter 4, going into I think chapter 5, like the Golden Saucer, man, it is really mini game heavy. Now, some of them are optional, but man, some of them are forced on you. That I think there was probably a 15-hour to 20-hour stretch that half of that time was spent playing mini games. That includes like the Queen's Blood tournament, Chocobo Racing, doing boxes, getting the greens. There was a lot of mini games, and plus the Golden Saucer itself. There was a lot of mini games there for a stretch. And I think for some that kind of hampered their progress. They're wanting to fulfill the story or do these things. And it's like, oh, I have to break boxes or get greens for a chocobo. Like, I understand that. For me, I loved it. I do like that the game gives you a chance. Like, you have to get an outfit for the beach. They tell you how much outfits you can get. Like, they choose the depth. You can do the bare minimum, get one outfit, progress. Or you can stick around, do more, get more outfits if you really want to experience everything. And I personally really like that. At certain times, the game rewards you for going the extra mile. Because they knew, hey, if you're a fan of this franchise, you're going to want to do everything. And some of us, yeah, we did. We wanted to do everything. And like, we don't mind grinding for beach outfits because it's like it's a little more time. But we know that that's not for everybody. Like, I know not everyone wants to grind for beach outfits. So I do think there is a point where the mini games become obsessive. For some. For me, I liked it. But for some, I can definitely see why it becomes a bit too much. However, that's not my biggest complaint of the game. My biggest complaint actually has to do with Vincent and Sid not being playable. Now, I understand it from a gameplay perspective. It's really hard to introduce a full-fledged companion with all these different side missions and all this stuff and this depth that they wanted every character to have. It's really hard to do that after 60 hours, right? Because that's at the point where I had like a chance to get some of these characters, like 60-hour mark. That's really hard to do, especially for like Vincent, where it's like, oh, you get him in the last open world region that you unlock. That's very hard to do, to create a full-fledged character and balance it and all these abilities and weapons and all of that at that late in the game. So I understand them not being fully playable. Plus, it gives them something to do in the next game, like, oh, they're finally playable. But there's two problems I have with this. Number one, I'm pretty sure the remake was announced in, like 2015? I feel bad for Sid and Vincent fans, because they're going to have to wait, 12 years to have their favorite character be playable? That's a long time, because they weren't playable in Remake, they aren't playable in Rebirth, so you're waiting for the third game. That's tough. That's really tough. And then, because sometimes during the story, the characters feel like they're just put on the sideline. They have very little to say, like, oh, here's a one-liner, we're just going to stand over here and look cool. And it almost made the characters feel cowardice in a weird way. Like, it didn't make them feel like part of the team. They felt so separate, despite them within the normal story being part of the team. I just don't think they were implemented well enough. What I would have liked to have seen was them have something to do in combat. Now, I get it that might ruin it, or like imbalance the game, or give people like an epic teaser, like, oh, they can do this assist in combat, but we can't actually play with them. That's stupid. I get that there's no perfect solution. But what they did, it didn't sit well with me. They just kind of sit there, or they just stand by the entrance. Like, it feels so weird because the rest of our party, even if we aren't using them, is with us, and they're like kind of assisting in their own ways, and it's really cool. But then like Sid and Vincent are kind of just there. And they're core members of the team. And I just don't like them seeing done this dirty. That's how it felt, like kind of dirty. Like, I get it from a design standpoint. They're kind of in a lose-lose situation here. But I just felt like they could have done something, right? Even if they had like their own separate meter that you built up to unleash a synergy attack with them. Like, just to give people a little teaser. I would love to see them have the DLC. Like a co-op, just them two, couple dudes, just doing dude stuff, DLC. That would be cool to me, right? Almost give them the intergrade Yuffie treatment. Now, if they do that, I'll forgive them. But give us that, please, dear God. We have a 4-year wait for the next game. Please, dear God, give us something. To sort of combine all my scattered thoughts, I was sad when Rebirth ended. I really was. I was sad when this game ended because I had such a fun time not only exploring the world and interacting with these characters, but the amount of love infused in this game was almost infectious. I found myself smiling when not playing the game. That's rare for me. Just the amount of care that they gave side characters and fan service and fan favorite characters and the boss fights and how much content they provided. This makes other games look inept. I just think this game has an uncanny ability to make people smile and to make you feel something. Final Fantasy VII has this ability like no other game that you can smile one scene and cry the next. This blending of humor, slapstick, and satire, but with dark themes of identity and loss and pain, destiny and fate. This melding pot of all of these conflicting ideas and feelings. They somehow come together like you can only find that in a Final Fantasy VII. I just love every aspect of this game, except for something I'm saving for a different video. There was something else in this game that kind of didn't sit well with me, but I'm saving that for a separate video because I just want to highlight how good this game is. I'm hoping that if you're watching this, you've played it, or that you're in the middle of playing it, like, go play it, experience it, do the side missions. Go spend 3 hours chocobo racing or 3 hours playing Queen's Blood. It's worth it in my opinion. It really is. So many other games are trying to do everything, right? They're trying to give you endless side missions and grind XP and be endless and all of this kind of stuff. Like, this game actually has meaningful content. I never did anything in this game that felt meaningless. Everything had a purpose, everything had depth, everything had that crunch. Again, all of your side missions are tied to your characters. So like that side mission about chickens, at least you're gaining affinity for your character. You're spending some time with Red 13, who you might love. And I just think it's so cool, man. I can't say enough glowing things about this game. I actually don't look forward to playing other games because it's like those games aren't going to do world building and characters as good as this game has. Those games aren't going to do as combat as fun and as fluid and as deep as Rebirth has. Like, if it wasn't for making content, I would already still be playing the game again. I would already be going through it on hard mode. Like, that's how addictive it becomes to play this game. So with all this being said, appreciate you guys watching. I am going to have some more content about Rebirth upcoming, so if you want to see some cool Rebirth content, make sure you subscribe, and have a good one.